export environment. And for those who do not know me, as was said, I am a watch commander at the National Targeting Center at Cargo, but prior to that I was with the ACE business office working on truck manifest and partially on M1 ocean and rail manifest. So I go back a ways with the ACE business office, and I'm happy to be back helping out with exports development as well. So as we start our presentation, first thing we'd like to talk about is the U.S. single window for trade. And this applies to both the import and export side. So the idea of ACE overall and ITDS, the international, the ITDS initiative, is to align all the federal government agencies so that we better meet the needs of the trade by coordinating all our activity through the CBP ACE system. And you'll be seeing as I give my presentation that we are working hard on the export side to integrate the various export agencies into the application so that it hopefully facilitates the movement of goods and products through the supply chain and out of the country for export. And that's all with that effort in mind. One of the other things I think it gives us is also the ability to clearly identify high-risk shipments better. A large part of the problem when you don't have the complete picture of the data going out of the country is goods sometimes get interdicted or stopped at the border because we're waiting for paper to catch up to the shipment, or it's missing, or it's ineligible, it's non-readable. So we're looking at that paperwork and those processes, and we're stopping goods merely for an administrative issue where we're trying to get the data to make sure everything has been met prior to the export of the goods. I think the single window gives us the opportunity to automate that so that we better identify the truly high-risk shipments, the ones we're really concerned about moving illicit goods, materials, funding out of the country, and allow those shipments that we're holding for purely administrative issues at the borders, stopping the progress and increasing the cost for everyone involved. Those can go down the road as we automate this. And I think you'll see this over the coming year, especially with license shipments, as we work with the various licensing agencies and permit agencies in the U.S. governments that have a say in exports, and how we will facilitate the movements of goods and hopefully move away from paper-based format for all of these sooner rather than later. For all of you who know, ACE has been in the process for many years now, and this screen here is trying to give you a high-level concept of where we actually sit on the whole development effort. And as you see, we've selected certain areas of common interest: pre-arrival manifest, arrival cargo release, post-release entry summary, exports, and the PGA integration into ACE's general. And at a high level, we've tried to track how much work is needed to be done to actually get to the point where we'd be finished with ACE fully. And this chart here is trying to show and demonstrate where we are exactly at this time with that effort. And the goal for everyone on the phone is to get this all completed by the end of 2016 and all this work fully implemented into ACE. And as you can see, for our interest, exports, it's showing that we're 54% done, roughly speaking, 50% done, with remaining work to be done. So I'd like to talk here a little bit about what we've done to get to that percentage of being completed in ACE. So starting in 2012, we actually did a high-level requirements gathering purpose. And in that purpose, we were actually looking at exports, which had not been looked at for many years. and what we wanted to do to facilitate and automate that process. And in keeping with the President's initiative for exports and the goal to double exports in 5 years, we were looking at that as a holistic approach, not just taking legacy code off of a mainframe application and bringing it onto the ACE platform with no enhancements or improvements of process. So I worked on that effort before I went over to the National Targeting Center, and we captured in high-level definitions, working with the trade through the COAC and through the TSN and the various other trade entity committees, but also with working with the PGAs and internal stakeholders in CBP to document what was needed going forward for exports. And I think what we determined was that there were a highly paper-based system in place, and also that we had stovepipe applications. So we had a legacy mainframe application that was processing and really in code and a structure that was out of date for to take advantage of all the other development that had been ongoing with ACE over the last 10 years. Then we also had licensing information stovepiped in different mainframe applications, and because of that we weren't able to automate fully the process of doing validations and business rule edits. Also, the documentation process was cumbersome from an automation standpoint with this format. And the last thing that we looked at was our enforcement arm and our targeting, and what was needed to get better at actually identifying the high-risk shipments, because the export process is very difficult to manage on from a whole range of reasons, but one is the staffing levels that are dedicated to exports on the government side, both on CBP and other PGAs, is very limited, so resources are scarce. So we do not want to waste our time identifying or stopping and examining shipments that we can validate electronically are in compliance and are of low risk. So the whole goal here was to combine all these systems into a single UI for the user, both the CBP user and the PGA user, so that they can look at these things and hopefully identify shipments that really meet their interests, that really meet their needs of high risk, and allow quicker notifications to the trade at a lower cost to the trade, so that those goods can move through the supply chain faster. And we began work on that in November 2012, and over about 14 months we built all three of those processes in, and we delivered that into the system in March 22nd of 2014. We deployed all that code to production in an ACE environment, and on March 23rd, when we came back out of that downtime for the deployment, we have been processing continuously in the new ACE environment. And that means that we have automated the entire commodity filing process, and we've incorporated it into ACE. We did changes for census and DIS with this, BIS with this, but we also now have a platform that we can move forward with doing changes and enhancements quicker that leverage existing ACE functionality such as DIS, the inbound system, the PGA data set, and other developments on the ACE side. So that was really the first phase that got us to that 50% mark. Now we are going after the paper-based process. So we are working hard to automate the export manifest process for all four modes, but also the remaining 50% encumbersomes incorporates the PGA work that we have yet to do. And we will be working hard to get all those PGAs into the system over the coming year. Next page. So they wanted me to talk briefly about the mandatory dates that are published on the ACE schedule here. So for our purposes, AES commodity filers, you're already 100% in ACE. Everything that's electronic is currently in ACE, so you'll see no date for your activities here. But we currently have a May 1st, 2015 date, mandatory use of ACE for electronic import and export manifests. What does that mean? That means I fully hope to have air, rail, and ocean manifests built and deployed into production so that we can develop pilots going forward. And that anyone who wants to join those pilots and send in electronic export information would be doing it in ACE. All electronic methodologies would be in ACE. We do have to do a reg update to mandate the filing of export manifest into ACE electronically in replacement of paper. But until then, we hope to roll out a pilot similar to what we've done on the ACAS side with the air carriers, where we run this and refine it over the next year or two while we wait for those regs to be written. And in those regs, hopefully we can incorporate what we've learned over the pilot's lifespan so that when those regs are written, published, and reviewed, that they meet everyone's needs, both from a government and a trade perspective. So the impact to the trade for the export manifest piece is purely in regards to those carriers that are piloting with us. November 1st, there'll be a mandatory use of ACE for electronic cargo release and related entry summary filings. Basically, the ACS cargo release that we've come to know and use over the last 20-some plus years is then being programmed as we speak into ACE under the monogram of ACE cargo release. This was formerly referred to as simplified entry and now is being inclusive of all four modes for certified from summary, and all that functionality for the PGAs that was incorporated into ACS, mainly the FDA features, are going to be built out over the next year. And we feel will be done far enough in front of November 1st, I believe it's a few months, that we will be highly confident that on November 1st, everyone should be able to commit to filing their entry information into the new ACE platform using ACE cargo release. And at that time, we anticipate shutting down ACS in a similar manner as we did with AES and shutting down the mainframe application in March of this year when we switched over. The other date is the October 1st, 2016 date. That's mandatory use of ACE for all remaining portions of the CBP cargo process, and that would include any entry summary pieces that are missing and any other outliers that we are inclusive. So we are dedicated to this process and moving forward and completing it well ahead of the dates that you see here. So we are highly encouraged that we will meet these dates and that we hopefully will have all the trade behind us, because on these dates you will be mandated to actually be processing in the new system. So now is the time to reach out to your IT shops and your software vendors to make sure you're on board, and the earlier the better with this process, so that at the last minute we're not racing to try to get you into the system to make sure that your processes are not affected in any way around these dates, that you're clearly in, that any known issues are tested and found well before these dates, so that we can make these dates as seamless as possible for the trade. For anyone who's interested, the actual high-level ACE deployment schedule is pushed and updated on our website, which you will see, cbp.gov/ACE. And you can go there and see. Now, when you see this, you'll see the deployments broken down into A, B, and C. We have completed all of the work through C. And then you will see deployments D, and so on and so on. And how we deploy them will change over the course of this sheet, and that's why it's important to always be checking for the current version. What you will not see move is those solid red lines. Those are the mandatory dates that we're going to enforce for manifest entry and entry summary and the rest of the automated processing. We have committed to those dates with those hard lines, so those are the lines you really have to be interested in. The deployment schedule is such you need to be watching to when you can start testing with your client reps for functionality such as the PGA data set, such as ACE cargo release, and the export manifest. So that is why this format is important for everyone to be checking this periodically to make sure they're following what the changes are, if any, and what the dates are they can expect to be reaching out to their client reps or CBP to find out more data on the testing and the deployment work that's ongoing. All right, finally, I'm through my push for the ACE program. Now I'm into the export. As I discussed, March 22nd, we deployed. That deployment included all existing functionalities with export. So we are on the new platform, and we are processing exactly as we processed in the mainframe, or we should be seeming to from a trade perspective. And that includes the AES post-departure filing, the option 4 filers that are allowed to do post-departure filings of their commodities. And it also includes AES Direct. So AES Direct filers continue to file directly in that system with no impact to their performance, or they should not see any. Those have been coming over into ACE without an issue. And as I said, the AES legacy system was retired in April 2014 and is now no more. We also retired 2 additional systems along with that AES legacy system. So this one effort, we were able to save those O&M costs for the government, and those funds can now be used for future work on building exports and building the import process. So as we move, that's one of the important things about keeping these dates. The closest we can get to these dates and exceed them, the more money we have to funnel into future development. So there were a bunch of census reg changes going into effect, and I will talk to them on the next screen, but one of the things I wanted to mention was there is a new license value in these fields. So everyone says, what's a license value? There was always existing at the line level in the commodity filing a line value. So if you were shipping a car out on line 1 and that car was $10,000, you obviously put $10,000 in there, plus your insurance and transportation costs. So if those were $300, you were reporting $10,300 in that field. Obviously, when we started decrementing DTTC licenses, 5s, we did not want to decrement the value for the shipment and the insurance costs. So Census had told anyone that was filing licenses, licensable goods for DS5s, is that they could report strictly the value of those goods in that license value line. Well, now we were impacting the statistics that Census was trying to maintain, that they're statutorily obligated to maintain for the export values going out of the country. So because of that, they added to their Census rules changes a new field called license value. That license value is that $10,000 for that vehicle, where you would now report on that line level $10,300 on the line value, but $10,000 on the license value. What we have been seeing since we have turned this on and started decrementing by the license value is that some of the trade is misinterpreting that field as being the license value as provided on the DDTC 5 license. So if that license for vehicle exports was issued for $100,000, people were reporting $100,000 in that field, and when I decrement, I was closing that license. They should be reporting the $10,000 for the vehicle and not the $100,000 that shows on the license. It the license value is the actual value of the goods being exported, not the value as shown on the license for the total authorized on that license. I mention this because probably 3 or 4 times a week I reach out to different freight forwarders or exporters who have had delays in their cargo processing because the license value was misreported. If you have been misreporting the license value as another value, you can simply do a correction to your filings and the system will recalibrate the license value as it should be and would adjust accordingly. And then you can go forward with your filings as is. But that is an important thing, especially since I don't want to see people's delayed shipments tied up at the border, is to make sure you or your filer, whether it be your freight forwarder or another party, is using the right value in that license value field. As we expand decrementation, hopefully in the future, to other license types, that would be important that that license value is corrected also. All right, we talked about other census changes that were impacted with this deployment. The first one was a change in the post-departure filing times from 10 days to 5 calendar days. So these are these option 4 filers that are coming in and filing. They're currently not late 10 days out, but the change was made on April 5th to change it to 5 days. We also added a ultimate consignee type, and that ultimate consignee type is one of 4 parties. It is the end user, a reseller, foreign government, or other. And you can be sending all of this data in now, the license value, the ultimate consignee value, and the next one, which is the FTZ identifier, was increased from 5 to 7 alphanumeric. Census also published a follow-up FTR on April 3rd announcing that although the new regs are in effect as of that date, there will be a delay from April 5th to October 2nd, 2014 for informed compliance. So it is important that if you don't know if you're sending us the ultimate consignee type, the license value, the FTZ identifier, and the 7 alphanumeric characters, is that you reach out to your vendor and or verify with your OT department or your software provider that you have that ability to send these additional data elements, because on October 2nd, if you don't send in this value, we will reject your filing for failure to adding an ultimate consignee type or a license value or the FTZ identifier in the 7 characters. The last thing we programmed for is the Advanced Export Information pilot. This is a revision of the Option 3 filing that was in existence many years ago. Census and CBP OFO would like to provide an alternative to either Option 2 or Option 4. The basic qualifications of the AEI filing option is that the trade is allowed to give us 10 to 12 data elements. Pre-departure, we will issue the ITN back to the carrier saying, here's your ITN, and then we will start a clock that will track for 5 days. And as long as you give us the remaining data elements within that 5-day clock, that shipment will not be marked late. But if we receive those 5 days late, the shipment will be marked late and a warning message will be issued to the trade saying that they failed to file in the regulatory time. Those will be tracked and watched by Census and CBP. The period of time, I believe, for the trade parties to volunteer for the pilot may be closed now, and we do have a number of parties that volunteered. If you are still interested, you would need to reach out to Census or CBP and request permission to participate in the pilot. But we anticipate, I believe, in the announcement that the pilot would run for 90 to 180 days. They will evaluate the effectiveness of it and reach out to those trade members that are participating to get their feedback. And depending on the comments and the success of the pilot, they will make a determination whether to do a final FRN, creating the new AEI option, or we may make changes to the process to better incorporate trade feedback and port feedback on what would work better, whether it's too many data elements, not enough data elements, if the timing makes sense for everybody. So it's important for, if you are volunteering into that pilot, that you definitely give the feedback to CBP so that your experience can be useful for us in evaluating that pilot success or not. Also, anyone interested or selected for that pilot, you can start reaching out, I believe, to your client reps, because the coding was deployed with the March 22nd deadline. And it is in the certification environment now, ready for testing with the trade. So that is all I have on AEI. BIS. BIS is interested in looking at the decrementation of licenses. They, I know, are evaluating it. We have built the system in a manner where we can apply the decrementation as soon as they're interested in doing it. It is little to no work for us to turn it on for the BIS license types if they choose to go forward. But that would require an FRN change on their behalf, so you would see a notification from them if they proceed on that pathway. They're also looking at increasing the export control classification number. That would also require future regulatory changes. But we built the new system so it's flexible enough that we can add an increase to the ECCN number if so challenged. One of the benefits of that is we could put increased validations and business rules in place that would identify some of these administrative issues quicker in the timeline, that when the shipment is filed, we could better notify the trade that there was a possible issue involving their systems. We did do more enhanced validations and edits, and those did go in place with the deployment on March 22nd. One of the other things that was delivered was the changes out of the President's Export Initiative Working Group to move the 600 series off of Department of State and onto the Commerce's BIS's license types. That was a change to the 600 series. Those changes were implemented in the March 22nd timeline. They are currently ready for the second phase of changes coming out of that group, moving the next classifications of license types from to BIS from Department of State. And those changes are going to take effect at the end of June. Those changes have already been made to our certification environment, and they are already in production. One of the things that this rehost allowed us to do is do a lot of fixes or additions, enhancements direct from the users, whether it be BIS was able to go in and add the appropriate ECCN numbers for the various license types and create ECCN numbers that they need under the new policy, and they could do that all through the UI, and we didn't need to do coding changes, again saving us money and time and energy to implement something that hopefully is for the betterment of the trade and the movement of those goods. So there were announcements put out by, I believe, Census, and BIS put out detailed information about those changes. Export manifest. Currently we are working on the air manifest. We hope to start rail manifest in this increment. We are in our increment 6, and each of our increments are 13 weeks long, with a planning week at the beginning of the increment and 2-week sprints throughout. So we do 6 sprints for a total of 12 weeks plus the week of planning. That's 13 weeks. At the end of an increment, we have code that we can actually deploy to production. Our hope is to complete air in this increment, have a good start on rail, and be available to actually deploy to production a pilot process for the fall of this year. for air and rail. We will then begin working on ocean manifest as we move forward, with the hope of early next year having an ocean manifest pilot up and running. In response to that, we have posted on our website draft copies of the Export Manifest implementation guides. There is a draft Air Export Manifest Commere, a draft Ocean Export Manifest Commere, draft Ocean Export Manifest X12, and a draft Export Rail Manifest X12. So out of these, we've worked with all of these individual groups. We've worked directly with the rail carriers for the X12, and we've been working on these draft versions of the manifest with the rail carriers for probably almost 2 years now. So they are the best and tightest IGs that we have out there for the trade to follow, to program for. Next is the Air Export Manifest. So in air, we're going to do something slightly different. We posted an Air Commere version of the Export Manifest, which mirrors our Air Import Manifest. But we are initially programming for the cargo int messages set, which the air industry uses as their main tool for communication. It is also the message set we chose to implement with the ACAS filings that the air industry uses for security filings. We are first programming in cargo imp messages. And you say, well, you didn't post those guidelines. Well, those guidelines are owned and controlled by the IATA organization. They have to be bought, and they're copyrighted by them. What we hope to do is similar to what they did for ACAS, is post examples of successful cargo int messages that we would accept in the system. We also are moving to look at XML as a mechanism to for the trade to utilize, because we believe XML is the way of the future, at least in the immediate and long-term future for everyone. We are not looking to get rid of or force anyone out of a traditional legacy transaction set, but we are highly encouraged that if we move to XML, it will provide benefits for both the trade and the government by doing so. So we will be publishing an XML transaction set that would work for air, and we want to do a universal one that would work for air, ocean, rail, and truck eventually. But we are working with the air CSAC group, developing that along with some of the industry groups as well, and we are receiving comments back on our transaction sets as we move forward with them. And the last is the Ocean. The Ocean X12 and Commere. We have been working with various groups here as well, receiving comments back on the draft version. We have received a number of comments on the Ocean ones that we will be making corrections or fixes to those IGs, along with frequently asked questions from the various trade entity groups that have replied back to these drafts. And then we will be posting the updated manifest for Ocean, along with their frequently asked questions and the answers from us as well, hopefully within the month. We will have those up on the website. And then you will see at the bottom of the screen the link to the website that they're posted at. We are currently working on the truck ones. Hopefully we will have the truck manifest ones posted by the end of the month as well. Next screen, we are working on the benefits of the Export Manifest pilots. Why would I want to volunteer to send in electronic Export Manifest? Well, one of the biggest benefits is that you get off paper. If you're filing stuff in paper today or providing an alternative to paper to the ports, whether that be a spreadsheet, Excel upload, whatever's in place in these various ones, and it varies across the country. So one benefit there is you get off the paper. You get off the couriering cost. You get out of the process of CBP calling someone on the phone and saying they want to look at ITN such and such or bill such and such. We will send an electronic message. If the manifest information is sent early enough in the process, it will be well before the movement of the goods, so that the trade can plan accordingly of what they want to look at where, and hopefully control the cost. One of the other benefits is that if there is an administrative issue, whether it be a missing license, permit, something in error, we can record that back to the carrier or the exporter so that that issue could be resolved early in the process and the goods can flow at the border, and I'm not stopping the goods to figure that out at that time. One of the other big benefits for the carrier community is that the system will validate the ITN number. If in the past you've been given an ITN number and written it on paper, and then some eager beaver CBP officer validated it and found it to be an error, he's possibly putting a hold on that shipment and stopping it from going. And if that's a train or a boat and it's already loaded and they have to offload it, that's a very big penalty to pay for having a fat-fingered ITN or someone giving you a bad ITN. It would be much better that if I notify you upon filing that the ITN you have is incorrect. So that would give a big benefit to those users who would like to see that real time immediately upon their filing, that if they have a bad ITN, I'm going to be telling you that. The other thing is the advance notice of holds that I'm telling you about prior to loading, prior to you combining your shipment with other shipments in a container. The air industry might load, express industry might load thousands of packages in the container. They know it's in that container, but I only want to look at one. They might have to offload that whole container and take all 30,000 or 1,000 packages out of that container. If I could tell them ahead of time, they could just throw that one package off to the side for CBP to examine, and we don't hinder the other 999 packages from loading and being exported. And one of the other things we look forward, hopefully, to include in the pilots is the automated closing out of inbound transactions on the departure of the manifest. So we're going to allow the reporting of the 62, 63s inbounds on the export manifest. And upon arrival at the export port and then upon export of that conveyance, we will automatically close out that inbound on the inbound side for the carrier. So if you're moving goods from Canada to Mexico, so you can see the benefits for a express carrier with possibly thousands of these inbounds on a plane. They could give us the inbound connected to their export bill. We would automatically close all of those thousands of inbounds from the system and reply in kind with messages that they have been satisfied on one transaction message set instead of having two, one for arrival and one for export. And so that's one of the things we're looking for. One of the future things we'd like to add is better tracking of TIBs and drawbacks in export manifests so that we can automate the closing out of those transactions on the inbound side, which is currently a paper process where they're bringing paperwork to CBP that we're physically checking and counting and signing off on that paperwork. Then it goes back and it has to be processed up through as paperwork through your entry or import specialist to close out that drawback or TIB. The pilots. So OFO currently is working on a Federal Register notice, hopefully to be published sometime this summer, announcing the pilot for all modes of transports for export manifest as they become available. This basically will say that based on the current regs, if you want to participate in the pilot, we will relieve you of the obligation of providing the paper or any other documentation that you're providing today in placement for the electronic. So a similar example for this pilot that we have done recently was the Ocean DIS pilot. In that pilot, we put an FRN out into the system that said, we're supposed to receive paper export manifest from the ocean carriers, but if you send us a PDF version via DIS, you're relieved of the obligation of actually incurring us a 1,000-page document to the terminal for your export manifest. So this is going to be similar in that it says, hey, if you're interested, you participate, you pick up all the benefits, and you don't have to give me paper. But all the other regulations would stay the same. Timing, relationship to what's being required to be reported would all be maintained. The longer term FRN would come out as soon as it's ready. My current estimate would be the longer term FRN requiring pre-departure filing of export manifest is 2 to 3 years from availability for publication. But I believe they are going to work it as a high priority, so they may beat that, but that would be my safe estimate. And we're going to roll these pilots out similar to how we did for the ACE cargo release or simplified entry pilots. For those users who are familiar with that, what we did was we identified ports working with various trade members, and we rolled them out limited to those ports and then expanded gradually to encompass the whole country. We're looking forward to doing the same thing. 2 reasons why we like this approach is, one, if there's issues with the electronic manifest, we've limited it to 1 port. And the other thing is we learned from our training and our implementation for operations at that first port, and we can then go out with those lessons learned to the additional ports. So we're not impacting everyone across the country and experiencing everything all at once. We can really concentrate on the rollout, make sure from a port perspective everything is being done according to the policy, and from a technical standpoint everything's working accordingly. And then we can spread it nationally as we roll that out. One of the other things this will give us when we make this more electronic and more standardized is it does cause both the operations and the policy to become more standardized, more national. I know one of the issues for the trade around the country is that it's a different procedure sometimes via ports, and that's really in regards to, you know, agreements over the time, differences in the way the paper is presented, differences in what's being accepted. Those all become more standardized as we move to a more national electronic system. And that's it. You see the timelines. The truck one we would be looking for sometime in 2015 after that. We don't have a date yet for that, but we will work with the various truck user groups and come up with a plan that makes sense for everyone involved. And I think I talked to most of this. I talked about the air cargo IMP message set, the XML. The rail manifest is going to actually support the ANSI X12 6050 standard, which is an improvement over the inbound side. We would then look at hopefully making that standard upgrade on the inbound side when we move the rail onto the ACE, or when we do our refresh of the rail import manifest. I'm sorry. In the ocean export manifest, we'll use the traditional ones, and the truck ones we're still working on, and we are working on a draft unified XML version that we will publish as soon as we have it available, inclusive of all the 4 modes. So we are at questions, and I have a whole list of them. The first question, will we be able to retrieve our export data from ACE similar to the way we can retrieve our import data from ACE? So yes, 4 reports. First for the commodity filers or the exporters. We are working on the next increment, increment 7, on the exporter accounts. I don't have the details since we haven't worked it out yet, but our goal is to align it in some manner with the importer accounts so that those parties that are both importers and exporters have the ability to run reports and pull the data related to their transactions both on an inbound and outbound transactional basis. And the initial reports for the trade on the commodity side would be similar to what you have available from your census yearly upload of data. except it would be on demand and it would be available via ad hoc, so you could alter the report to suit your needs. And it would have the ability for you to track your stuff real time. There will be additional report functionality as we're working with the TSN and the CSAC to identify additional report requirements. For the commodity filing reports and license reports, which are generally the biggest requests we have, I will be required to obviously work with those agencies that have the authority over that data stream. So in the case of commodities, it'll be a joint decision between CBP and Census on what data we can and cannot share and what reports we can and cannot build. For licensing data, it will be the specific licensing agencies that we will work with to get that data. We also are looking at building query capability on the export side, similar to what you have on the inbound side, to validate ITN numbers and licenses if they're a valid license number and if they are current, right? So you can see that we already have them and that they're still active. And there has been some talk about giving, for the license holder, the value of the license back that's remaining on that license. So all those things are being looked at. From a carrier perspective, yes, you would get the same functionality reports similar to what is built on the ACE platform today for ocean, truck, and rail. We are actually working through the inbound reports to hopefully simplify them and make them better and more user-friendly for the trade. But we plan to apply those to the export manifest as well. The second question, so we can still use AES up to 5/1/2015, or can we continue to use AES after that date as well? So do we have to use ACE, or is it just mandatory for carriers? All right, AES, the traditional AES legacy system was retired. There is now an AES component in Manifest, or in ACE. Similar to there is a truck manifest piece, there's an MMM, Multi Modal Manifest piece of ACE, there's an entry summary piece of ACE, there's also an AES piece of ACE. It is a subcomponent in ACE. So it's one system, ACE, but there's a subcomponent still referred to as AES today. And yes, you would continue to send it today just like you do. When we rolled it out, obviously we made no changes to AES directs, but for the EDI filers, the electronic data interchange filers, we just took over the existing MQ connection that we had that was going to legacy and rerouted it to ACE. So all your messages today are going to ACE that you're sending electronically. And you don't have to do anything. As we build manifest, they will automatically be in ACE as we start accepting them. Number 3, will ACE allow the US PPI and or its authorized AES filers to print individual EEI details and reports a la AES Direct Shipment Manager feature? So we are working with Census to define what the requirements are with that, but it's anticipated that the reports that you have, you will be able to print or download those reports, similar to what is allowed now in the import reports for importers. I just have the timeline that the initial reports will be available by the end of this year. I don't know about specific reports outside of that, but the common reports that you're used to getting from Census, those are the reports I'm talking about. Which agencies comprise the 8 PGAs for exports? Well, I'm not sure there's just 8, but there's 8 that probably, and I haven't counted them, but I will go through the ones that we have right now. So from a PGA perspective, obviously exports was kind of ahead of the ITDS ball because originally AES was developed as a joint Census Customs project. And as an example of that, obviously Census built AES Direct, but initially upon build, Census was providing funding for that, had their contractors and their government staff involved with the development of it. And that's how it's been working with the rehost as well. Census is deeply involved in the rehost of this system. So they are the first agency that's in the ballpark, and we will continue to work with them on any enhancements or changes. Their big one is AEI, the Advanced Export Information, going forward, at least immediate future. BIS is a very big partner. They actually have access to the data for their license stuff. They are very proactive in working with us on any issues or problems that they find with the system to better facilitate the needs of the trade. And they continue to suggest enhancements to the process so the BIS licenses flow better through the supply chain. The other one that's a big player is DDTC and their license types. We currently obviously decrement DS5s, but what we'd like to do is work with them to fully automate the process so we get out of the process of accepting paper at the ports, lodging of licenses, and we are moving forward with that. One of the big things is we don't get the amendments to the license electronically. They're only provided at the ports in paper. We are working hard with them to hopefully make that process electronic, and we get those amendments via them directly, and then we can move forward with getting rid of lodging of papers for their licenses. Another big agency is the Foreign Military Sales, which is actually a combo of Department of Defense, DSCA, or DSCR. I missed my alphabet soup for agencies. Them, and also it's also under the Department of State regs. Those foreign military sales we're also looking to automate so that we can get off the paper of being submitted at the land border or the ports by the trade, and get those either via DIS or electronic from the agency issuing them. So that's a big if. And then we're looking at the permitting agencies such as DEA and automating those precursor and controlled substances permits that they issue both in the import and export side of the house, and tying those to the ITNs. And we are also working with the Agricultural Marketing Service. They issue permits for apple and grape shipments out of the country. We are looking to automate that process so that we get those permit numbers via the commodity filing. EPA is working with us right now to do a project for hazmat goods. They are looking at doing a pilot sometime this year for hazmat lead acid batteries in our system. We also have some other agencies that are interested in data information being flowing through them. OFAC is another agency we've been working with to identify OFAC licenses and automating that process fully. So we are working with any agency and every agency to identify their needs on the export side. This is one thing that if you're aware of a paper process or a sticking point in the facilitation of the movement of your goods through the port, if it's an agency license type, if it's a highly burdensome paper process that's slowing down your exports, this is where you need to raise it to CBP, this organization, trade ambassador in the field, so that they can handle those messages to us so that we can incorporate and make sure we're working with that agency. There may be only 5,000 shipments a year, but if those are your 5,000 shipments, those are important that we take care of the issue. The fifth question, if we currently transmit AES through AES Direct, how will that affect us with ACE? It doesn't. All the AES Direct information is sent to CBP, and we're the ones who do the actual full back-end processing. AES Direct does have some edits and validations that are built into the system, but those edits and validations are rechecked again when they come to ACE. When we build the reports, all your transactions, not just your EDI ones, will be in ACE and will be available via the reports. So it will be a complete record of all your transactions in the reports. And by sending through AES Direct, you are in compliance. You are working with ACE. I mean, that is going to ACE. You don't have to switch over to a EDI process. Number 6, we appreciate that CBP State is working on the DSP5 permit DDTC license lodging issue. Is there a plan to automate the current manual process of decrementing, signing in and out the DSP 6, D1, and 73 temporary licenses? So that is on the docket to be looked at. I do not have an answer identified, and I don't believe anyone has an answer of how we do that better. But that is on the agenda to automate over the next 2 years. The seventh question is for the possible ECCN expansion. What does that look like? Will the I can't read the writing, sorry. Will the format, as soon as I looked at it, I could see it. Will the format change and or how many characters would be added? They're looking at going possibly up to 10 characters. Again, that would have to come out in an FRN announcing the change, so you would have time to comment back on that if they proceed with that. What that gives us is the ability to do better management of those shipments. That being said, there is no plans right now of making that change in the system. We just built the system with the availability data space for that to make it easy. I do not know of any FRN that they're working on it to come out to make that announcement. So you're looking at, you know, probably a good many months or years before that would be fully realized. Number 8, will exporters be able to see any additional data in fields for routed transactions? Well, initially we would provide the same fields that Census currently has and allows people to see for routed transactions. I know that is not the full amount, but we will be happy to work with Census to try to add whatever additional fields that you feel are needed for those transactions. But we are currently bound by the Census regs on those transactions. So, but we are gathering those documents, and if you have recommendations or suggestions, I will be happy to take those to Census and work with them to try to implement them if it's possible. Number 9, if we currently use ACE for imports, will we easily be able to obtain the historical records for exports? So once you get into the system and we provide those reports, we have the historical reports going back to 1995 currently in the system. That is when we first automated the process, and they weren't on paper sheets. Of course, from 1995 to 2004, roughly, if my memory serves me, maybe it was 2008. Anyway, somewhere over that 10-year period, or exceeding the 10-year period, we mandated the automation of the record submission, and the goldenrod SEDs went away. So it's only partial data from 95 to whatever the date was of full implementation, whether it was 2004 or 2008. But since that date of mandatory obligation, we have the complete record sets in our system, and currently we have no plans to limit that data pool for the trade. Let's see. Number 10, is there any plan to validate the EIN, exporter identification number in AES? Not currently. Obviously, we validate those numbers against our records, our profiles. So you have to have it one set up, and you know you're identified when you come in as the filer if you're doing your own self-filing, and that is validated. Also, if you're an option 3 AEI or option 4 filer, you have to be set up via your EIN and your name in our profiles to be a valid option 4 or option 3 filer as well. So those are controlled and editable, and a reject will be if you're not in there. But I'm taking this question to mean that you really want to validate the EIN number fully with the issuing agency. 11, as a freight forwarder, can we still use AES instead of switching to ACE, or will we need to switch to ACE before the deadline. If you're using AES Direct, at this time, there is no plans for you to switch, no need to switch. If you're using AES Direct, you are, in all intensive purposes, submitting that data to ACE. That's just the vehicle that allows you to do that. 12, in addition to lodging DSP-5 licenses, what about handling of DSP 73 and 61 licenses with ACE, within ACE? Yes, so we want to automate that and better track that electronically, and that's on the docket, but I don't know when we'll get to it because I don't have an answer for how we fully automate that, but we will move forward on getting that better. 13, please include the USDA for veterinary certificates in ACE. Vet certs are required. For products that contain dairy ingredients, the permits are requested through an electronic procedure now, so it should not be too challenging to expand ACE to include the existing USDA procedure for export vet certs. So that's a good statement. We have not worked with USDA on exports yet, but I will be reaching out to them in the near future to gather their requirements. 14, will the USPPI or exporter be able to view additional data or AES fields in the ACE reports for routed export transactions, so it will be easy to audit the export data? I do know the desire to see additional data for routed transactions. Again, we will work with Census and get as many data as we can available for the trade to run reports on. We are looking for this. That's all right. Here, that's it. Sure.
This is the question. There will still be only DOS licenses in ACE, just as in the AES system. DOC licenses haven't been included yet, correct?
Wrong. DOC BIS licenses are in ACE. We just don't decrement them currently. We do a transactional link to them, so we're transactionally watching them, and we do a validation when you give us the license that the BIS license is on file in our system, so that it's a good license number. Is that it? No more questions. I ran the group down into the ground. They probably all are sleeping now. Whoop, one more.
How is CBP working with the Fish and Wildlife Service in regards to ACE?
So on the inbound side, I know they've had meetings with them. So they are in talks. One thing I failed to mention with the single window is the presidential the executive order from the president requiring all the agencies to be on board in ACE by the end of 2016. That has done a wonderful effect to the other government agencies in encouraging them to work with us in moving the ACE priorities. As with every office, and I don't blame them, there's always competing priorities. So when we've worked with these agencies, and given the history of ACE, sometimes these agencies didn't consider the request to work with us to automate the process very seriously, because we've had a number of false starts in that direction. But I think with the new direction of the program over the last year and a half, we've proven ourselves, and I think we've proven ourselves enough that the President was confident enough to go out with an executive order saying that by 2016 he wants all agencies to work with Customs to automate the process. So long story short, they're working on it. I believe we have EPA, or Fish and Wildlife, on the docket for increment 7 or increment 8 for exports. If you look at the schedule online, it will actually show that work on the process board. So yes, we are working for them. I don't have the details because I haven't been in those meetings on the inbound side, but we know we have some work on the export side to include. One of the other agencies I didn't mention was the National Marines and Fisheries Service. They do export permits for, I think it's 5 fish species that are regulated and have to be controlled. Currently, those documents have to be faxed or couriered along with the shipment's movements so that they're allowed to export. We are going to automate that process either electronically or through DIS to get that data and then link it to the shipment, so it's always available for the officer if he wants to check it real time, and we can do validations up front for them. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. You'll see right there the website to ask ACE questions that come to mind. And trust me, they're very good at following up with me to get an answer out of me. So you will get an answer at some point.